Lots of leading conservatives outraged by what they just heard there. Joining us now with her reaction is Dr. Kelly Victory, a trauma and emergency specialist. Dr. Victory, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Alex. I appreciate the invitation.
What's your reaction to what you just heard?
Well, let me say, I take great exception to the preposterous contention by Gavin Newsom that you didn't show right there in that clip, but he says in the interview that there's, quote, no way we could have known, that there's no way we could know then what we know now. Because certainly we did know. I knew. And others knew, and I was saying what I was saying from the very beginning of this debacle, and that's what it was for the past 3.5 years. And I was saying what I said, Alex, not because I'm a good guesser. It's because that's what the science showed us. We've known for decades that masks do virtually nothing, for example, to stop the spread of respiratory viruses. We've known for decades that asymptomatic spread is never the driver of a respiratory virus. Anthony Fauci said so himself. We've known for decades that natural immunity is far superior to vaccine-induced immunity. We knew from the very beginning that children were at such a de minimis risk from COVID as to be functionally no different from zero risk. There was never a rationale to close schools, never. And the teachers' union was largely driving that. Since when does the teachers' union hold sway in matters of public health? Okay, we've known for decades that you never inject people with a novel treatment on groups of people on whom it has never been tested, and on and on. And not only did Gavin Newsom not listen to people like me who were saying this, he actively tried to suppress that information and to censor us. He's responsible, for example, for the passage of AB 2098, a law that fundamentally criminalizes a physician for daring to give their own patients informed consent, or to suggest, for example, that the vaccine isn't a wise idea or isn't as safe or as effective as we were led to believe that it was. So I have huge issues with the way this was handled in California and elsewhere. And I think, unfortunately, there is no moving forward without contrition, without an acknowledgement from Gavin Newsom that they did not do well. In fact, they did pretty much everything wrong. And so I would suggest that if you want to win next year's pennant, you shouldn't spend a lot of time interviewing the manager or the coach of the losing team.
So what would you do? So what if there's another pandemic? What's the big lesson learned? What do we do different the next time?
First of all, you should listen to the true science and not allow drivers of our pandemic response being people with special interests like the teachers' unions. They should have had no say in whether or not we close schools. We should not have been allowing the people calling the shots in this to be people at, for example, the CDC who had a conflict of interest with regard to the vaccines. There were people making millions of dollars in royalties from their parts of the patents, for example, on those vaccines. There's tremendous conflict of interest. So I think really we should be listening to people who have varying opinions. The amount of censorship, Alex, was egregious. They shut down and did not allow open dialogue. Yeah. I am willing to have robust, vigorous debate.
Do you think that there's value for vaccines for people that are high risk or elderly, that it potentially helped them, prevent them from dying? It didn't stop them from getting COVID, but it helped their outcomes long term. You do think there's value for at least that?
Well, I think that the data are not clear on that at all. It clearly did not stop people from contracting COVID. It did not stop people from spreading it to others, which was the basis for the mandates. So it never stopped them from spreading it to others. And there's very thin data, Alex, that it actually decreased hospitalizations or deaths. But fundamentally, it is a personal decision that should be made between a physician and the patient. And there should be the idea of a mandate for a vaccine that doesn't stop transmission is absolutely unconscionable.
Yeah.
It defies the very ethics of first do no harm.
It is clear that the mandates, when they were sold with that concept that it does stop transmission, which is clearly not something that was true when we look at what actually happened. Dr. Victory, we are out of time, but we appreciate you sharing your perspective. Obviously, we welcome a lot of different perspectives. We know there are people that are going to disagree with what you just said, but we believe in having an open dialogue here, and we appreciate you sharing your views.
And I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks.